Hello, you guys, and welcome back to another episode slash video on this podcast slash channel. Thank you guys so much for joining me or rejoining me today. I am back in another tube top. When I was editing my last video, I was like, dang, I'm looking a little bit naked, but I have a shirt on, I promise. And today, I want to talk about a very important lesson that I have learned on my healing journey. I feel like your healing journey is like lifelong, but for me, especially in this past year, which sometimes when I be talking to you guys, I be thinking, I'm like, am I a little repetitive in like the small context that I probably like bring up just to make sense in case people are coming to my video for the first time? Like, I don't know if you guys noticed, but whenever I talk about what I'm healing from, majority of the times it's my last relationship. And I always say how my last relationship was abusive. It was essays, stuff like that. And for me to be able to like say that in my videos and to my platform, like so casually nowadays, not that it's like casual, but I've just gotten more comfortable in realizing that like my truth is not like it's not a big deal. Not that it's not a big deal. Like, let me explain. As many victims of SA unfortunately say, sometimes like it takes time to process what happened to you. Like people won't like have that experience and be like, that's what it was. Because majority of the times the people who do this to you are like people you know or people you care about, people you just didn't expect it from. And that was my experience, right? It came from my partner who I was in love with at the time, but post the breakup is like I had like a delayed reaction to it. That's when all this stuff started coming up, the panic attacks and the fear and the nightmare. All this stuff was being brought to the surface to where like I could no longer um act like this didn't happen or continue to make excuses for my abuser, because a lot of times we do that when we're in love. And I remember I struggled by myself with these panic attacks, my chest hurting all day, my fast heart rate, barely getting any sleep. I struggled with this for like 2 weeks before I wanted to like tell anybody, like, hey, this is actually, what went down in my relationship that I never told anybody about. And it's like really hitting me now, because I felt so like I felt like it was cringe, and that is really really sad. I'm laughing because I just think I'm awkward with my trauma. Sorry. And I feel like other people could relate. Like sometimes when bad things happen to you, it just feels like cringe or like weird to admit, like because it just feels so like vulnerable. Like it's just one of those things that I viewed where I'm not trying to say this in like an egotistic way, because I never had a like it's basically one of those things where it's like I never imagined it would happen to me. I wasn't trying to say I was above anyone or I would never put myself in that position, because that's not true. Um, I don't like that statement at all. Nobody puts themselves in that position. It's all up to and the fault of the person who does it. But I guess that's just like how I thought about myself. I just never thought I would have to deal with it, because I don't know, that's just, you don't premeditate that. Like you don't premeditate that happening to you. And I don't know why that is the feeling I felt. I remember when I first went to therapy to unpack this, I said it felt like cringe and it felt embarrassing to admit. And so I suffered for like 2 weeks before I was like telling my dad some stuff was going on, but I was saying I didn't want to tell him like why I was struggling. Um, and my dad is like a really chill dude. Obviously, like he wants to know he's my parent, but he didn't push me. He was just like, okay, like asking what he could do. And then when I finally told him, even then, it was still so hard because I couldn't just like use the right language. Like I was just like, he used to like keep asking me to do stuff that I didn't want to do, or like try to make me do stuff that I already said no to. Like I felt like I was trying to explain it in like the softest blow way possible, because again it just felt cringe to me to use the real language. Like no, I was literally essayed. Like he didn't try to do stuff against my will, like he did, but it felt really weird to say out loud, and especially to say to my father, like someone like that. And mind you, I was 19, 20 when this happened to me. It wasn't in the sense of like I wasn't supposed to be doing that or I was afraid of being judged in that part. Because I know some people in some cultures, some households, like that's a big deal. It's not when it comes to like me and my dad's relationship, but I just felt, it just felt like, I don't know, it just felt like using the right language was cringe because it was like, was it really that bad to call it that? I'm like, did that really, like, did that happen to me? Because I feel like I was always comparing my story to what I thought it was. And yeah, I really used to explain it to people like that often. Like, well, not often because I didn't really tell many people, but when I did, I was like too afraid to use those words because again, it just didn't feel right. I was always comparing myself and questioning, like doubting myself, which I hear is another thing that a lot of people um, who have gone through similar things struggle with. It is now August. That whole time of me having such a hard time to admit what happened to me and use the right language was last September. So it's been almost about a year. So when I say I can just like so easily say, this is my healing journey, this is what happened to me, this is what I'm healing from now, like in this moment, it's like really special to me because that was me a year ago. That felt like it was cringy and it was embarrassing to admit that that happened to me, and especially to tell other people. Like, it felt like I had to like hold my breath. Like, imagine you're talking to someone, it felt like I had to like just spit it out, like it was like some huge thing. Like, is like that feeling when you're like a kid and you're like in trouble and you say something and you're just waiting for people's reaction. It's so weird that I felt that way, but I really, really did. And I know that a lot of other victims have probably gone through a stage like this, or maybe are still in this stage, like still, whether that's like you don't have a great community around you, you didn't get a great response when you try to talk about it. I just want to say, because it's very near and dear to my heart, that if you have to say like this low key happened to me or that kind of happened to me or it was like it did, like don't be afraid to use the right language because it's real and it happened to you, and it doesn't make you cringe or make you like different. Like, it's literally just your truth and it's not your fault. So don't be afraid to call it what it is, okay? I'm just so proud of like my difference in the way that I speak to this, to what happened to me, to other people, how I'm much more open, not necessarily in being like, I just tell everyone that off the jump, or I always talk in detail or stuff like that. But it's just like when it does get brought up, it's like I'm able to just say it and use the right word and not doubt myself like, I shouldn't say that or I shouldn't say this. And I'm also able to, I feel like, speak that way to myself, which is the most important and validating. I think that in that process, I also felt very alone, and not because I got a negative reaction from someone. I know, unfortunately, a lot of people who go through SA get people doubting them, saying some bullshit. But that wasn't my case. But before I spoke out, of course, that was a fear because you see it happen so often. But I also have this fear, like, I just felt alone, like nobody could relate. And it was just like a self isolation because in reality, unfortunately, a lot of people can relate. And some reason I didn't know that. Like, it's like, this is real, obviously, it happens. But I feel like, again, because so many people are quiet about their truth for different reasons and all valid. Maybe they're scared because talking about it could put them in danger, or maybe they just don't want to talk about it because they just don't want to talk about it. Like, anything is valid, but like because a lot of people, or even I would say a lot of people who go through this don't feel like they can bring it up until they have the space to, which I've seen, which is unfortunately really sad that through this journey I've learned that other people I care about have been through similar things and I had no idea. And I just feel like honestly it's not talked about enough, which, like I said, I completely understand, but then I don't. But then this is also why I like what I do, because when you do talk about it, I feel like other people feel the safe space too. So it's like, because it's just like such a taboo topic, especially whew, unfortunately to a lot of people where this happens in their childhood, maybe, like I said, it comes with fear of making people look bad or whatever. Um, I'm kind of rambling. I hope I make sense. What I'm trying to say is that when I started to speak up about it, I realized that I was so not alone. Like, I'm over here dealing with this by myself, being like, I don't want to talk about this. Like, I feel like it's embarrassing. Who can relate? And in reality, so many people can relate. It's like, I'm not saying normalize our trauma or normalizes. Obviously, this will never be normal. Okay. Obviously, we're not normalizing it in the sense that, oh, it just happens. But at the same time, it does happen. So like, we need to talk about it. I feel like that's the only way for it to get better. And I'm not putting any pressure on people who don't want to talk about their stories for whatever reason. You go. You don't have to say anything you don't want to. But I feel like when you bring it to light, because when I brought mine to light, I heard so many other people's stories that I would have never heard. And I was like, oh, so it's not just me. And it's sad, but it also makes me feel a little bit comforted, where I'm just like, oh, I was so scared and I didn't know that like I actually had people I could talk to about this, and it's not just, oh, me and this happened and maybe I should have, like, I don't know. Just to anyone who's been through some bullshit, because this life is shitty. It doesn't have to be sexual trauma like me. It could be physical abuse, emotional abuse, this happening, dealing with this person, dealing with that. Just know somebody can relate. Somebody can relate. It's not your fault what other people do. And that's really just what I've learned. Like, I feel like we as humans are so quick to isolate ourselves and just like other ourselves, because the society that is presented to us, like I said, literal abuse that is so much more common than we think. It's like always a conversation that's so taboo. That's like, we don't talk about that in public. You keep that in the family, or you keep that over here. But it's like, why? It happens. I'm so proud of my journey and how I'm much more comfortable in my truth and in my story, and realize it's not something that's like, I felt embarrassed like it was something that was in my control. I'm like, why am I feeling embarrassed for something that happened to me that was out of my control, you know? Like I said, just coming out about my own story, unfortunately hearing it from other people's stories just made me realize that I'm like, it's a big deal, obviously, but when it comes to talking about it, like, it's not as big of a deal as we think it is. Like I said, I really felt like I had to hold my breath to say that I'm a victim of something. Like, girl, like, you think of if you were talking to someone you loved, and someone you loved felt scared to tell you that they've been abused before because it's embarrassing. You would be like, are you kidding me? Like, don't talk about yourself like that. What do you mean it's embarrassing? Like, that wasn't your fault. And so I really had to think. I'm like, is this like how I would treat someone I love? No. It's just a thing. It's a thing that happened to me, and it's a part of my story now. And it made me who I am. Not that I appreciate it. I'm sorry, I have to laugh so I don't cry. But people have shit. Everyone has shit. Like I said, not everybody watching this has my type of abuse, but you have maybe had a different type of abuse. I just learned in therapy and through researching, like, I unfortunately have to do all this learning as a victim, which is sad, but I feel like also very liberating just to know this much and be able to understand myself more and other people. But yeah, if you are going through this stage of denial, or I don't want to use this, or I comparing your situation to others, it's your situation, it's your truth. You're overthinking and you're feeling these feelings because it was real. Like, the fact that you're even thinking about this means it was real. I know it's hard. I know it's hard. Trust me. When I first started having those panic attacks, I was like, no, like, it wasn't that bad. Like, yeah, it made me uncomfortable, but I'm like, this isn't like other people's stories. It doesn't matter. It's your truth. My heart rate was there for a reason. My chest was hurting for a reason. I was having nightmares for a reason. So I just want to make this to validate anyone out there. Your trauma is valid, okay? It happened. It's a part of your story, but it doesn't define you. But the first step to healing from it, I feel like, is being able to acknowledge it and use the right language. So don't keep being in denial and doubting yourself. Because would you treat someone you love like that? I don't think so. So don't let me hear you talking about yourself that way again, okay? So yeah, guys, no matter what you've been through, just remember that you are not alone. Everybody has stuff. Everybody has something. I feel like even like when you talk to friends, like have you ever talked to a friend and be like, "Oh my god, that happened to me." Like it doesn't have to be trauma related necessarily, but it's like the more you actually talk and are able to live in your truth, you find that community and you just realize that it's like everyone has something, babe. You're not special. You're not special in that way that you have to be so scared to say that you have something because you have something. You have something and it's fine. I mean, it's not fine. Sorry. It's not fine, but it's your truth and it doesn't make you weird. It just be nice to yourself, you guys, and other people because we're all struggling. And although we will never, ever, ever normalize abuse, I think that talking about it is the way to unnormalize it. Because when you see in the world with any problem, like for example, me being a black woman, like I remember my parents talking about how like no one believed in police brutality before it was caught on camera. It's always been happening, but now y'all just see it. And so now everybody's like, oh, we care, we need to do something about this, you know? And I feel like it could work similar for abuse. Like these conversations are so like you don't talk about that in public, you don't just bring that up, blah blah blah. Why not? It's real. It happens to children, it happens to adults. So the more you hear like, oh my God, this person, and that person that I know, or this person that I didn't know, this person's cousin, it really happens to that many people. It's very hard to ignore when people speak up. And again, I'm not saying it to anyone who's not ready to tell their truth because that's your business. You heal and you filter it out however you want. But if you are ready, use that voice, baby. Use that voice because the more we speak about it and normalize these conversations, that we're not going to be quiet because it does happen and it can happen to you at any age, unfortunately. Then it's like, what y'all gonna do? Just keep ignoring it? I didn't think so. Ho. Sorry, y'all. I make jokes, but like I said, I'm so weird about my trauma, even still to this day. If you're weird about your trauma too, and like you want to giggle when you talk about it instead of cry, or you still cringe at it a little bit, you're valid. Cause me too. Because sometimes I just can't believe this is real and it just feels like icky being vulnerable. Sometimes still, like even sometimes making videos, I'll look back and I'll be like, I talked about that a lot. Like, I'm really about to share this with random people on the internet. But why the fuck not? Because, like I said, it happens. And almost every time when I have that doubt of speaking up and stuff, it's like I'm always rewarded with the feeling of like, no, because someone did see this and someone did relate to this, unfortunately. But that is the feeling that I want to have. Like, I want to help someone else see themselves in my content and feel like this is a safe space because that is another huge part of my journey. When I watch videos about SA survivors or this and that, like it really made me feel like I'm not alone and this happens to other people. I felt like that too. And yeah, that feeling is just a very beautiful feeling to feel understood and seen. So I hope I'm doing this for you guys because we're all more alike than we think. Like I said, not even just regarding my specific situation, just life in general. This shit is hard. Financial problems, problems in love, going through abuse, family problems. Like, it's hard. And we all have something. So be nice. All right. Thank you guys once again for listening to me yap. I hope I said something helpful. I make these videos obviously for you guys, but also for myself. It's very healing to just talk it out, share what I've learned. Yeah, so if you want to hear more, I have a Yap Sessions playlist with lots of similar videos, or this podcast if you're from Spotify, Alicia's World. Hey! Thank you guys again so much for listening to me and running up Embrace Your Negative Feelings. And just running up my subscribers. I just appreciate you guys because, you know, I do it for good reasons. I love doing this. I love all that. So it's just like really makes me really happy to see the physical benefits of what I do purely out of my heart. So, yeah. But I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.